Hello and welcome to the Brave Marketing Podcast with your host, Swapna Thomas. This is the podcast for the renegades, the trailblazing leaders, and the change makers who don't just have a business, it's your calling. Those of you who want to make a difference and make money, but all on your own terms. I'm on a mission to show as many life coaches as possible how you can have more income, more impact, and infinitely more fun by being unapologetically and bravely you and breaking all the rules. I have created 5-figure months with no paid ads, a tiny list, and zero complicated sales funnels. Simplifying marketing and teaching you how to use it for good in the world is my zone of genius. With this podcast, I'm here to share weekly episodes on the soul and the strategy of marketing, mindset, money, and everything online business. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Brave Marketing Podcast. And today I have someone who I feel like I've known forever, but also I have never met her in real life, which is bizarre. Yet, I've not met her yet. It's not, forever. I'm definitely going to meet her, but I haven't met her yet. She's a business peer, but more than that, I feel like she's a soul sister. She's also someone I really look up to, like a big sister, because she's a badass role model who shows what living life on her own terms is. A very, very brave welcome, Shannon Dunn, to the Brave Marketing Podcast.
My beautiful friend, what an introduction. I love that you said like a big sister. I do feel a little bit like your big sister sometimes, and that's got nothing to do with being older than you. Just that bit ahead of you in business and things like that. But I'm so excited to be here and happy that you have a podcast again. Like, yes, you've got so much to say, and yes, let's rebel together.
Yeah. And we've just had like a 15-minute conversation bonding on our cats before we ever hit record.
Right.
So that's something common between us. But let me get into her professional bio, because you got to know what she's all about. A super creator, visionary thinker, liberation-loving, inspiration-seeking, wisdom woman, chai devotee, and stand-up paddleboard enthusiast, Shannon Dunn is an international award-winning Australian businesswoman, business and leadership coach, retreat leader, best-selling author, creator of the Thrive Factor framework and its 12 female-centric leadership archetypes, and regularly sought out as a keynote speaker. Shannon coaches, teaches, and cheers ingenious and ambitious coaches, creatives, and impact makers to turn what they know into energizing and profitable income streams, unlock their effortless success zone, break up with unhealthy hustle, and make a rippling impact by embracing their inner rebel. And she also leads the Thrive Factor Coach certification as a huge ambition to ripple thriving into the world in a big impact kind of way. So there are already so many things that you can spot common between us, that we want to break up with the whole hustle culture. We are both rebels and we love working with change makers and impact makers. So Shannon, one of the things that I ask everyone who comes into the podcast is, what's the bravest thing you have done? And it surprised me to see that you wrote that you did not consider yourself as brave, because I know of your journey and every aspect of it seems so brave to me. But I would love to hear your take. And just to give context to the listeners, I was recording for Shannon's podcast earlier in the week. And I think after the 1 hour recording for the podcast, we had another hour and a half conversation at least on so many things. But one of them was how both of us were raised to be polite, good girls. And we were the quiet rebels who did not raise a whole lot of hell. So is that part of why you never identified as being brave as you were going on your journey?
Possibly, yes. I guess I haven't given it that much thought, Swapna. And when I saw that question, I mean, we're at the Brave Marketing Podcast, so talking about being brave, I figured it would be part of what our conversation could be about. But there isn't things in me, like I've done some very tenacious, bold things in my life. But I haven't sat back and then reflected and thought, well, that was really brave of me. It's just like, it felt like a compulsion to do it. It didn't feel like I needed to muster a unique part of myself or a part of myself I don't tap into almost at every moment of every day to accomplish it. Whether that be, whitewater rafting in my early 20s down the Zambezi River in Africa, which was, I found out afterwards, the highest grade rapid in the world that they commercialized, and that someone had died the day before. I found that out after, which was just
Oh my God.
to doing all sorts of things in the travels I've done, to navigating business, to leaving, like you and I both, we've left corporate careers, we've studied, we've done lots of things, we've shown up for ourselves, and we've made our own waves. But as we both talk about, in a quiet rebel way, we're not the kinds that draw attention to ourselves. To even in the last few years, reinventing myself when my marriage ended, which was a good thing. I'd not like to add that in. It was a happy ending for me, and a kind of connection to myself, because I wasn't really reinventing. It was like coming home to me, and republishing my books and reestablishing a brand that had been built with 13 years of a different name. But I don't kind of look at those as brave. I just look at them as, this is what you're doing. Get on, come on, get on with it and be excited about it. So, yeah.
And I think a lot of people will resonate with that, because being brave is about being who you are more than anything, right? It's not about trying to do the brave thing. It's about doing what you know is exactly what you need to do. And sometimes it feels really scary, and it feels like, I don't know if I'm going to lose everything that I have built, but you know that you cannot not do that right now in this moment, right? So
yeah, and that's it, that compulsion that I said before. It's almost like I talk a lot about choice, as but if I think about the different phases and periods and experiences in my life, it's not necessarily felt like it's a choice or not. It's just like, this is just go and do it. Like, it is a compulsion, a real drive to take action, to make decisions, to immerse myself in different things, to reach out and have conversations, build relationships, even, like building a relationship with you. As you said, we do feel like in the best possible way we've known each other forever. And yes, it's a number of years now, but we haven't yet met in person. We'll change that. But, you can, even that is a brave thing for a lot of people, to put themselves out there. And I think if we look at brave in that, a simple way is getting up every day and choosing to back yourself, then yes, I'm an incredibly brave individual.
Yeah, and I think that's what it boils down to, is that having your own back. Like, you can hire a coach, you can have a whole team, you can have people who support you in your life, or you may not have all of those things. But what is always going to matter is how much you've got your own back. Are you standing up for yourself? Are you standing up for your message? Are you standing up for your clients every single day? And it's not easy. And that's why we say, by the whole idea of being brave in your marketing, because it's not, if everyone could do it, I don't think there would be a need for us, but honestly, it's not easy.
That's right. But I had a conversation with a beautiful woman this morning who I've just met recently, and she was talking to me about the enormity of her fear about putting herself out there. And she said to me, she's been watching some of my content and reading things and looking even at selfies and images and videos. And she said, you just make it look so easy. And I said, oh, thank you very much for that feedback. I really appreciate it. I said, but it wasn't always like that. But it took that showing up and giving it a go, learning from people, connecting with people, looking to others, not to compare, but to be inspired about ways they might be doing things, and think, well, if she or they can do it, then why not? Let's give it a go and see what it's like. And the imposter syndrome phrase came up. You and I have talked about this a lot over the years too. And she said to me, that just cripples me. And I said, great, let's find one thing that you feel excited about trying, even if you're terrified. Start there. She's like, oh, I can do that. See, yeah, it's making it easier. Break it down, make it easier.
And it is about those small things, like how they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And that's the attitude you need to have in your business as well, where you just look at what's the one step I can take? And even that step might be scary. I'm not undermining, what it might need at all. But, you only need to see the first step of that big staircase, and you don't know where that leads to, but just getting on the first step and then the next step. That's what all of us need to do.
I think the reality is, and this is because I've seen it over and over again in so many years now being in business, and even prior to that, if I reflect back to my working life as an employee, being in my business 17 years ago, that so often we get so stuck on the end goal and we have to be there now, and forget that it's all those little moments in time that actually lead us to whatever the accomplishment is, or the dream, or the vision, or the way we want to feel, or whatever the way you think you're headed. But focusing all on the future all the time and getting obsessed with how it needs to look and feel and be takes us away, I think. And I think that's would be an interruption to being brave.
And I wasn't planning to go here, but this is the perfect, segue into this. It's also about who you become along the way, right? That's the most important thing. I think people just get so stuck on the outcome and the numbers, right? The 100K, the 10K months, or the 1 million business that they want to build, that they forget that the process is more important than the outcome, what's at the end of the journey. And if you cannot stay focused and brave in that journey, even through the $0 months, even through the failures and the refunds and the bad clients and the, really low months, and anxiety and overwhelm and depression and all of these things, which can be a part of being an entrepreneur and who you are through that journey. When you don't focus on that, and when you don't give that a bigger priority, that journey just becomes so much harder. And I think one of the things that I know that this is important for you as well, is that it's not just about reaching the destination, it's also about loving the journey along the way. If you're beating yourself up along the way and just shaming yourself constantly, it doesn't matter if you start making the money. Like, I don't think you're going to enjoy that money at all.
No, I agree with you so much. And all of the experiences that we have along the way to wherever this, dream destination is that we're aiming for, in the business landscape, if we're not able to be in that moment more, reflect, to celebrate, to have conversations, to cry if we need to express emotion, to be okay with being, say, both sad and happy, challenged and ecstatic, all of those dualities of emotions, then we're not able to build the kind of resilience that I feel it takes to really be there in business for the long haul. Someone said to me not long ago, they were like, well, what's one of the big differences about you as a business coach? Because in their view of things, it feels like every person they were meeting in the last, wee while was a business coach. And it does feel like that. I think there's been a massive increase in the number of people coaching and business coaching, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years. And so this person had said to me, well, what makes you different? I said, I've been doing this for 17 years. I think I've kind of proved that I know what I'm doing, or I wouldn't have a business. And yet I don't feel also that I need to prove what I'm doing, because the tenure, like the length of time I've been in business, the clients I've worked with, the things I have achieved, if you want to look at all of those things, that's enough proof if anyone wants that. But I don't need the proof. I don't focus on the proof. I focus on, well, how was my day today? How did I feel? Who did I get to talk to? I got to chat to my friend Swapna twice this week. That makes it a really good week. It's not just about, oh, I signed a new client and I made X dollars. Yeah, doesn't mean that we're going to feel great in those moments. So
just from that 17-year journey and from your unique lens, because I know you have a unique lens and a perspective on everything that you see, what are some of the good things about the industry, the coaching world now compared to when you had started? And what are some things that you constantly find yourself rolling your eyes at? And I know one of those things is the literal, it's the whack-a-mole business coaches who are coming up. But I would love to know what are some of the things that you think are really good now, and the other side of it as well.
Let's start with the positives for sure. Because when I started as a coach, I was also very much a hybrid, moving from therapy work and recognizing that coaching was a style of a way I wanted to work with people. because it wasn't focused like a lot of talk therapies, counseling and therapy. I love them, but they have their place. I wanted to work with people who are focused on the here and now and the future. And a lot of those modalities don't do that. They're very much, let's go back to the past. Let's take you back to wherever you were, examine that, and then we might get to here. And that never resonated with me with all the study that I've done. So when I was given the opportunity to understand what coaching was as a methodology and a way to work with people, it was actually when I was still in corporate. And we had the most incredible executive coach who I was in a leadership team. Most of the members of that team were very new to leadership. And our boss, who was the kind of head of the area where we were working, decided that we could do with some group coaching, bless him. He had been working with this individual that we had come in as our coach. And so his enthusiasm piqued my interest as to coaching, because at that time, this is over 2 decades ago, the only coaches I'd heard of were like growing up and playing sports, and you had a coach for your netball team or your softball team, nothing else. But again, I'd studied counseling and I was a qualified art therapist as well. There was other things, there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to trust, this amazing boss that I had, who was a great mentor. He's so excited about this, and I've seen his transition. Let's go and see what this is all about. I remember sitting in that very first session, and there were 6 or 7 of us. I said, all different stages of new roles in leadership, mostly different backgrounds, different past experiences. And I watched this gentleman, who I still am in contact with today, kind of wrangle us together in such an incredible way, because he was practicing coaching methodology as like you and I would know it. And I was hooked, Swapna. I sat there and I was like, what is this stuff? What is this magical kind of way of talking and getting people to reflect on things and draw their own answers out and come to their own solutions together and collaborate, because it was a team environment. And that was enough for me. I was just like, let's go and find out what this is about. And that really started me. I was the first one to put my hand up when they're like, we're going to do some in-house coaching training so you can learn how to use these ways of working with people with your team members. Yep, first one there. And then I have done many different pieces of coaching study along the way since then. And the thing I loved about it, that I still love, is that when you are looking at true coaching methodology, it is about journeying with somebody. It's like I see it like when a way I talk about it with my clients, it's like a collaborative experience that we work together to go from wherever someone is to create deeper understanding, to expand awareness, to support them to connect with their own resources, solutions, and outcomes, maybe teach them along the way as well, and guide them forward, not because we know better, but because we probably have different expertise, different tools and things that we can draw on. And so it's just like walking alongside someone to support them to get to where they desire to get to. And hopefully, certainly the way I look at it, and beyond that, they don't need us, but they desire to come and have that support to move forward. And I still see that evident in the coaching industry. But some of the things that I don't love about it is that there is a misunderstanding of what coaching is. So many people have had experience of coaching, often ended up hating it or really having a distasteful experience. And that's because when I've heard this from so many people over the years, they haven't been coached. They've been given advice or told what to do. That's not coaching. And a lot of the time, particularly in the business coaching space where you and I work, those coaches, or those individuals calling themselves coaches, are teaching the methodology that their coach taught them, that person's coach taught them. So it's just this like replication of this is how you do something, whatever their niche or their focus is, without necessarily any business credibility, without understanding how to actually work with a human being and their life experiences, their emotions, their humanity beyond them as a business owner, for example, or whatever the context of coaching is. So the advice giving that happens is dangerous. Yeah, it's not serving anybody. It's creating, as I said, a misunderstanding of what coaching actually is. There is a lot of I see a lack of duty of care, because a lot of people who are out there coaching are not, say, aware of the boundaries or the scope of their competence, and are going, journeying with someone perhaps down a path that might be opening up trauma for somebody and not knowing what to do with that, not realizing that this is a point I need to refer on to an actual qualified professional to support this person. So that kind of stuff really bugs me, because it's an industry I love and I'm here to make a big impact and, change things as best as I can. And when I see that happen, or I have people say to me, "Oh, you're just a coach. I hate coaching." No, I'm not just a coach. Do you want to actually have a conversation with me? Because I'm curious as to know why you said that. So that's when my quiet rebel gets loud. Like, I want to challenge you. I want to know where that came from. Let's have a conversation about this.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and there's a post percolating in my drafts as well about how one of the things that is becoming rarer and rarer in the coaching space right now is the safety for clients to say no to their coaches, because they feel so pressured that I've paid so much money to this coach and I might as well, do what they're telling me, even if their entire body is telling them, no, that's not what I want to do. And because there's also this sort of shaming around, don't stay in your comfort zone, stretch yourself, don't keep, doing the things that are comfortable, which has no understanding of how the nervous system works. Like, you cannot put your nervous system in a flight, fight, or freeze mode by just triggering it constantly with uncomfortable things, so to say, right? So there's that fine line that coaches need to walk when working with clients. And I guess mentoring does become a part of it, inadvertently, especially when you're working with businesses. But I think there is also such a big scope for coaches to retain that sense of coaching, pure coaching, when you're holding space for them, and there is safety for the client to say, I understand what you're saying, and I think it would be amazing for someone else, but this doesn't work for me. So, and the coach is resourceful enough to work with them to create what would feel good to them and still take them ahead, right? And I think because there is so much of focus on numbers and this shiny results, that coaches are feeling that they just want to push people so that, most, like maybe 1 out of 10 of those people is going to get the big results. And that's what they're going to use in their marketing. But 9 other people are going to fall through the cracks with their nervous system in overdrive, with this trauma, and completely feeling cynical about the coaching industry. I think we are on the same page with that completely.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised that we are. As we have established in our long-term friendship, we have very similar aligned views coming from perhaps different backgrounds, but they're well considered and well researched views as well. What I was also thinking with what you were saying there, Swapna, is, when someone has paid a significant amount of money, and that, I'm not even going to put a number on that, because we see people charging, a couple of $100s through to, multiple tens of thousands for a coaching session, which also is, I feel, a bit crazy. No judgment to anyone who's doing that, but it just feels like you and I both know what goes into coaching, and I know I'm an exceptional coach, but I feel it's not appropriate to be charging someone more than, their year's rent to sit with me for an hour anyway. But often when people have invested a lot of money, they also put their coach on a pedestal. It's like, they said that I have to do this, or they said this will work, so I have to. So that's another level of, giving away their power often, and deciding that that person is the be all and end all. And I mean, I know I'm that kind of client. It's probably a nightmare for a lot of coaches. The one when someone says, do this. And I was like, let me think about that, or let me consider that. And I've been told that I'm not committed, that I don't know what I'm doing, that, various things like that. And I'm like, no, I need to look at this in the bigger picture. I trust myself. I don't know everything, or I wouldn't be here seeking support and seeking guidance. I love to have a sounding board, but I'm not going to just jump in and do that because you told me that will work. Yeah. Which most clients don't have the capacity or even real understanding that they can do that. And I love to, I genuinely say often I meet my clients where they're at, which is exactly what I do. I work with clients that are, in very early phases of their businesses through to being highly established at all different ranges of income and profit levels, all different kinds of businesses. I'm not a coach who just coaches like a lot of coaches do. And I love the variety and the challenge it brings me as a coach. to meet that person where they're actually at as an individual, as a human being, and as a business owner, and to help them to see what's possible, to understand what they could do, to try different things on, to examine what works and what doesn't work, how it feels, how it doesn't feel, and make more decisions. Because at some point in time, I don't want them to be working with me. I want them to have that built that trust and that reliability on themselves. And then if they come back for something at some point, which a lot of my clients do, it's for a very intentional, considered reason, something specific they want to work on or want some support with. And often I find at that point, yes, they want the coaching, but they want more of kind of the mentoring and education piece, which I will offer as well with coaching in there.
And I think that's the best outcome for both the coach and the client, when they're working not with you, not because they need to or they cannot do it without you, but because it's so much more fun to do it with you, and it just expands them so much more, right? So there is that sense of self-trust and expansion, and knowing that the next level is always possible for them, but with you on their side, they can just do it probably easier, faster, and it would be a whole lot more fun. So going on a little bit of a tangent now, I saw a post on your Instagram about your niece who was wondering why you were on Spotify and why you wanted to talk to everyone in the world, which is such a toddler, like a 5-year-old, I completely.
Yeah, Holly's nearly 6. And this was a few weeks ago. I was helping my brother and sister-in-law out, the kind of family members that would usually have her for a day or to care for her during a school holiday while they were juggling work weren't available. And it was such a joy to say, again, the gift of being in business, to say, yes, I can block that day out and spend the day with her. And she's such a firecracker that I always feel good afterwards, exhausted, but really good. And it was the day that my podcast had launched, and she was looking, she has a playlist that we created together on my Spotify account, the songs she loves to listen to. And she's a very diverse taste in music for a 5-year-old. But in looking for her, she knows how to do that, but in looking for her playlist, she saw the cover of my podcast come up. And she said, "Hey, Shannon, is that you?" And I said, "Yes." And because she's, madly pushing the buttons on my phone. And she put on one of the episodes, and she said to me, "Why do you want to talk to the whole world? Why are you on Spotify? Like, what? This is strange." And then she said to me after that, which I don't think I shared in that post, "It's good you're not singing though." So, because for her, Spotify is a platform where she listens to music. She's like, "Do people really talk on here?" And so I was showing her podcasts and things and explaining what that was. And she goes, "This is a curious thing." She's just such a fascinating kid. But it was around like, why would you want to do that? And the thought went through my mind is like, is this the time to have the conversation about world domination and the importance of, if you've got something to say, find a way to say it. And I didn't go to the world domination and talk about like my big vision for the Thrive Factor, but I did say to her, it's really important that if you've got things to say and share with people, and you've also, if you know really great people and you want to share them with the world, that you find a way to do that. She goes, okay, like she'll have planted that in her brain, and who knows, maybe we'll start a podcast for her in the next couple of years. It would be funny.
And I was reading that post and I was thinking that, this is a conversation that our clients need to have at regular intervals, as well as why are you doing this? Why are you here? Why do you need the world to hear your message, right? So, because I think especially in the beginning of the business, or I feel like even sometimes, along the journey, it's easy to lose track of why did you start this? What's the vision and what's the long-term impact? So what do you feel is something that, people in business, especially coaches, should do to keep realigning to that vision and the big picture that they have in their mind?
That's a great question, Swapna. Before I come into a thing that I think was great to do, I think the problem that creates the disconnection from the why is that so much of the business world is focused on the how. Every time you go into social media or you join a program or work with someone, they're like, I'm going to show you how, I'm going to teach you how, this is how, this is how, this is how. Like, it's over and over saturated messaging. So we focus on that, but I don't know how, or I need to know how. And yet what can create the greatest, I guess, almost like magnetic pull into the future of the vision or dream or outcome you're working towards is the why. What was it that got you started in the beginning? And I love to, at least twice a year, maybe more. Personally, I do this and I encourage my clients to do it, is just to pause for a moment and think about that. Why did I start this in the first place? Not about what I've done, where I've got to, what I've achieved, how I've done it, but what was the thing that got me started in the first place? For every one of us, it will be different. It can also evolve over time, even though our original why, I feel, is still there and can still be motivating and driving. For me, I know other things have come into that and expanded that why as I've continued to expand into my business. But staying connected to that is one of the most grounding things that we can do to keep us real, keep us humble in many regards, and keep us focused on, wait a sec, what's the actual bigger picture here? Getting stuck in them, day-to-day little tiny things and the focuses of all the things we need to do and whether we're doing it as good or better than someone else and all that. And do I know how? Do I need to know how? Is, again, a distraction. And I think, again, like I said earlier, an interruption to being brave.
And so, because we have been having this conversation around vision, it totally leads me into talking about the Thrive Factor archetypes, which I believe evolved from a personal leadership framework that you created many years ago. And it's such an amazing tool to map out not just the big vision, but also the intricate details of our business, like decision making, marketing, relationship building, etc. And I know this could be a series of podcast episodes that you would do on your podcast. And I'm sure you're talking about Thrive Factor all the time in your podcast. But if you were to just sort of create a quick introduction of what that is, what would you share with our audience?
Yeah, thank you, Swapna. The Thrive Factor framework is, I've come to understand, it's something I've been using in my business for a long time now. And you're right, it did come originally from a framework of personal leadership archetypes, and they still are personal leadership archetypes, but they, I think, it's like matured into being called the Thrive Factor. And the framework consists of 12 female-centric archetypes. It also consists now of a coaching methodology that is focused on working with the individual strengths and potential challenges of the unique individual archetypes, but also the relationship between archetypes. Of the 12 archetypes, when you come to learn what your archetypal profile, your Thrive Factor is, it could be anywhere between 3 and 6 of those 12. We're not one-dimensional. We're not one, linear personality. We have different aspects to us. You have 3 archetypes. I've got 4. A lot of clients I work with, can, as I said, have anywhere between 3 and 6, and all of that it's them. It's a normal expression of who they are. The way that I use the Thrive Factor is very much focused on business, but I also have a coaching certification now to teach other women to use, to really step up into the world as leadership coaches using the Thrive Factor framework and the coaching methodology. And they come from backgrounds of healing, of money, of all sorts of different things. And they get taught to use the Thrive Factor framework and profiling aspect to work with their female clients, not to use it for business. That's just my unique way of doing it. But I have loved it's like a gift that the Thrive Factor provides, the opportunity to really, truly understand yourself. It expands self-awareness. It creates depths of self-understanding that we have often misunderstood or ignored often as well. It gives us an opportunity to understand how to create more ease in our life. And we actually, when we're teaching the Thrive Factor archetypes and how to use the framework, we talk about when you consciously and intentionally use the strengths that you have and understand how to work with the potential challenges when they become actualized, you're increasing your potential to be in your effortless success zone. That's where things become easier. You feel better about things. Your resilience is broader. Your confidence is higher. You know, again, like we said right at the beginning about back yourself, you know how to back yourself. You know parts of you that have come up. So say you have an actualized challenge, but you can look at that and go, but I understand where that came from. And I also know the skills, the tools, the attributes, the beliefs, the things I have to support me to shift through that if I actually don't want to have a negative experience or impact from this particular, whatever the challenge is. So it's a very empowering framework. And it just has created, it's called the Thrive Factor for a reason. And I talk often about having an obsession with thriving, but really looking at what does it mean for me to thrive? because it's different for every one of us. I know you and I talked about this when we were chatting on my podcast recently, but it's the knowledge, the understanding, the honoring of who you are to amplify thriving for you. And one of the things that I see is the greatest impact for all of us when we do that is that thriving can then ripple out and positively influence others in our life, whether that be in a work context, like with you and I in business, our clients, but our families, our friends, people we meet in the street, or people we network with online, whatever that context is. When we are able to be in that space of creating more ease for ourselves, of really activating thriving, knowing how to thrive, knowing what thriving means for us, we are able to lead by example. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts of leadership as well, is that just saying, this is how I'm going to do it. It's that quiet rebel coming up again. This is what I'm going to do, and letting yourself lead your life. I find it curious that a lot of people will say, so will make reference to the way they lead their life. And my first thought is, are you really leading your life, or are you letting life lead you? Because I think a lot of us have had many experiences, or a lot of people in the world spend a lot of time letting life lead them, but they don't actually take ownership, responsibility, accountability to do anything about leading life themselves on their terms.
And just for context, you will know more about the archetypes when you go into Shannon's world. But for context, mine are liberator, engineer, queen, ruler, and mentor, teacher. And if you listen to my episode, which will come whenever it comes on Shannon's podcast, you will get to know how I use that, or how I understand myself better using those archetypes in my own business. But I know that you love simplifying things, and I love simplifying things as well for our clients. So if you were to break this down a little bit, right? So if someone is a liberator engineer like me, what does that look like when it comes to their marketing? If you were to just give them sort of like a case study kind of a view.
Yeah. And this is in some ways easier because I also have the liberator engineer archetype. Yes. And it is the archetype of the rebel. So this is, again, another reason that can support why Swapna and I use that word so much. We're actually speaking the language of our archetypes. It's innate in us to understand this rebellious nature. So the liberator engineer has a gift for seeing the big picture of things and understanding how all the moving parts work. They have a desire to create freedom for themselves and others. So that's where that word liberator relates to. The engineering part is that it's a very analytical archetype that loves to build. So literally to put things together, try things out, break things down too, which is not always great. So from a perspective of, well, how do we make things easier from a marketing perspective? We have a gift for showing people how to get from here to here, whatever the starting point and the end point is. And it's not about teaching the how. We've already had a conversation about that. It's about guiding people to connect them to their sense of liberation, their sense of freedom, and to take simpler steps along the way. One of my favorite questions to ask when I'm coaching is, how can this be easier? And I know that particular question is coming straight from the soul of my liberator engineer. She said we both have an obsession with things being easier, for sure. It's an archetype, though, that can, when she is in the space of her potential challenges being actualized, make things really hard. We over tinker things, we overcomplicate, we add too many steps in the process because we can see all the steps. But when we can actually go back to, does that actually feel free when I do that? Usually no. So how can I make this feel easier? How can I make this feel freer? How can I create more space and ease with things? So painting that vision for others is the greatest gift that we can really, I guess, embody as liberator engineers in our marketing. Show people what's possible. Show people how things can be easier. Show them it can be easier by being a living example of that.
I'm just like, as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself and my marketing. And I think the engineer in us also is able to reverse engineer a lot of things. So when we know your desire and when we know your, outcomes that you're going for, your goals, it's easy for us. And we know it's easy for us to see the path that might be the most aligned for you. But also because we are liberators, we know what freedom means to you, what freedom means to us. We are also able to hold that space for you to find your own way, right? So even though we can see the whole path, like if you did this and did this and this and this, you would get there. we also know not to push you down that path, like to create that freedom and space for you. So that's something I was thinking, like what shows up in my work with my clients is that, even though I can give them the exact specific strategy that they can use for it, I also am very committed to the fact that it has to be their way, and it needs to feel good to them, and it needs to create freedom for them, and it shouldn't bog them down. So I love it, and everything about Shannon's trifactor framework is in the show notes. You can go to her website and read up all about it, and of course her podcast, and everywhere she is, you cannot escape listening about the trifactor framework, because it is her life's work, I feel like.
It is. And I think that's also a sign when you are here to create legacy, which I think everybody has the potential to do, but it doesn't mean that all of us actually take up that invitation, if you like. And if you want to draw on that word brave and go, I'm going to do this. I created this framework. Yes, it had a different name, but it was around 2009, 13 years ago that I started or 11 years ago, 12 years, I forgot. Anyway, long time ago. Yeah.
Speaking of the human in you, I have a few questions now, which are more about you. And of course, your work is an integral part of who you are anyway. But another question that we ask everyone who comes on the podcast is a weird fun fact about them. And you talked about that your name means little old wise one, and your clients also called you Biz Yoda. And I also know that you love Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And the listeners cannot see it, but she has a few Wonder Woman figurines on her shelves behind her. And of course, Yodas. So were you into all of this stuff from the very beginning, like comics and Star Wars, and from your childhood? Or is this something you discovered on the journey, like these empowering figures just started coming into your life and you made them a part of your branding and business and life?
A great question. I grew up in a Star Wars obsessed family. My mum and dad, I remember I'm the eldest in my family. I have two younger brothers, and the brother closest to me in age. We were quite young when mum and dad took us to see the Empire Strikes Back movie. So I think that was originally number 2, and then it became number 5, when they changed all the franchise. Anyone who's a Star Wars nerd will understand what I'm talking about. So I was connected to Star Wars from a very young age. Both my brothers are obsessed with it still. And I just got called Yoda when I was little because I was the little old wise person. I didn't know that was actually what my name Shannon meant, little old wise one. And then that just made sense, right? That of course Yoda was my favorite Star Wars character. He was wise, he was cheeky, he kind of pushed boundaries. And I can see that reflected in when I look at my own 4 trifactor archetypes. It's like, of course. And then my clients, without knowing what my name meant, this is going back even 10 years ago, one of them latched on and decided to call me Biz Yoda or Business Yoda, and it stuck. And then so I was like, oh, maybe I should tell them what my name actually means and that I actually am quite obsessed with Yoda. So, the collection of Yoda figurines behind me are all gifts from clients, which is quite funny. One of them even was given to me, especially made for me. It's the Grogan, the baby Yoda figure, was handmade for me by a beautiful client that I have here in Perth where I am, but by a connection of hers in Cambodia, and shipped here for me for my birthday. So it's got so much meaning. And then the Wonder Woman, yes, as a little girl, I would race home from school to watch Wonder Woman on the TV. So everything about her was just like, who is this? Who is this, individual? Who is this woman? Look at her magic powers. Look at how strong and smart and sassy she is. She stands up when things aren't right. So again, I loved that whole energy of that character and have loved it ever since. One of my great joys was when the more modern Wonder Woman movie came out, the first one a few years ago, taking my elder nieces at the time who were younger teenagers, they're a lot older now, and being able to share that with them. And I remember coming out from that movie, and my niece Mia, who's my second of my nieces, who's now 16, but she was about 12 at the time, and she was quite obsessed with Supergirl. Princess Leia, interestingly enough, is she calls her spirit animal. She's got a huge poster of Princess Leia on her wall, but she comes out of that and she did the kind of Wonder Woman pose, and she goes, Wonder Woman is so much better than Supergirl. And I was like, yay, she's got it. Right. So carrying on the mantle of that Wonder Woman energy. So yeah, they have been part of my life my whole life. And I feel like the easier things get in terms of marketing and showing up online is me just sharing these parts of who I am. Letting people see the things that I love, talking about, like in my intro, you talked about me, the paddleboard, and I am paddleboard obsessed, but being a chai devotee, if there's a good freshly made chai that's not powdered, I want to try it. And as I said, I can't wait to get to India, and Swapna's going to take me on a tour of all the places we can drink the best chai ever and teach me how to actually make it, because it's not, the versions in Australia I know are not kind of right. Anyway, we'll get there.
Oh my God. I'm gonna blow your mind. Like there are places here where you get like 100 different kinds of just chai.
Oh, that's so exciting. But, those are little quirky things about me. I love all sorts of different kinds of music, and sometimes in my bio include that I'm a disco tragic. I love 70s music as much as I love the modern stuff that's coming out now. And that's, again, the influence of my family. My mum and dad kind of immersed us in things that they loved and encouraged us to develop our own passions and interests, which I think has been such a gift now. I can see that. When you're being, you're having to deal with ABBA and the Bee Gees on mum's record player, it's a different story. But now I'm so grateful for that and the connection that has with myself and my family. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we talk so much about, creating a magnetic brand and, a brand that attracts your aligned clients. This is it. You just be who you are and just lean into that and, show all of those parts of your life with your audience, and stop filtering so much. Like, stop trying to create this perfect image of what an entrepreneur is supposed to look like or what a coach is supposed to look like, and embrace who you are naturally. Like embracing my curly hair has been a journey which just completely took my brand to a whole new level, because it gave me the confidence to be who I really am. And the way this works is that the more you become, the more attractive you become to clients, because they want to create the same vibe in their business, right? They want to become more of themselves even if they don't know it. So I think that's such a gift when we are able to lean into that and just completely own these parts of our life and our journey.
I so agree with you, Swapna. One of the things I love hearing the most from someone when they spend more time with me, whether that we get to meet in person and we've only connected online, or they might become a client of mine, they'll say, like, oh, you're just like I imagined. Because the imagining is because they've connected with me by reading my content, listening to me, watching videos, listening to the podcast. And I am, in those spaces, who I am in real life.
Yeah. And it's so much easier, right? Like we talk about being effortless. This is the effortlessness we are talking about.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that you have to share every single aspect of you ever. But it's so much easier just owning my quirky obsession with Yoda and Wonder Woman than going, oh, I must make sure the background behind me, if I'm videoing, looks professional and businesslike. No, it's fun. It's playful. I've also got a couple of Little Miss books, Little Miss Curious and Little Miss Wise. They were both gifted to me by people, and because that's, again, expressions of who I am.
Yeah, I just released an episode on the podcast yesterday, which is all about 5 marketing lessons from Taylor Swift. And I'm such a big Taylor Swift fan. And my daughter feels like it's so cringy because I'm in my 40s, and how can you be a Swiftie? You're not supposed to be a Swiftie. But in your 40s. And I don't care. I mean, I absolutely love her. I think she's a marketing genius and a genius, bona fide genius in everything that she does. And I have so many clients who are Swifties as well. And they are also in their 40s and they love Taylor Swift as much as I do.
I love it. With her bringing a new album out just recently, obviously I'm going to have to go and listen to your podcast episode now because I haven't caught that one yet. But in her bringing new music out, you were suddenly seeing how many people are actually into Taylor Swift who possibly have never shared that before. And I find it funny that why can't they just go and share it? I saw even yesterday on Instagram, I saw Pink advertising that she's got a new music video coming out. And I shared that to my stories. That's a lot of music I love. And I tagged in one of my clients who was obsessed with her. I was like, I'm sure you already know this, but in case you don't, kind of thing. And being able to share that in our stories in business, to me, is exciting and interesting as these are the tips on this, or this is how to do this, or this is a program I have coming up.
Okay. So what's a book that's sitting on your shelf right now? Because I know you love books, and when you had a whole other podcast, we had done I think an episode about our favorite books, and which was one of the highest listened episodes, I believe.
It was. That was a fun one to do, wasn't it? We had, Swapna and I decided we do our top 5 books, and we didn't check with each other before. We just bought them, and we had about 3 the same, I think, which I love so much, like without having any idea what it was going to be. But what am I reading right now? I'm the kind of mentor teacher, as a mentor teacher archetype is that, and the Liberator Engineer are the two that you and I have the same. As such an avid lover of learning, I'm always reading, but I don't read one book at a time. I read multiple books at once. I dip in and out as to what am I feeling like today. So currently I'm reading a book around being a wild woman. So really looking at that expression of self, which I can read about all the time. I've just got a copy of something about being normal. Okay. So I was looking at, I'll have to send the information to you, because I see the visual of the cover, but I never necessarily remember the names. But it's really looking at, again, trauma and the myth of normal, and that what is normal anyway kind of thing, and the trauma response for all of that. I've got a book on what else is I'm sitting on my bedside table that I'm dipping in and out of at the moment. Another one on mindset, and again, I can't remember the name of it. But they're the kinds of things I'm reading right now. Yeah, diverse. And listening to lots more podcasts and audiobooks than I had been for a while. So I'm listening I always am nerding out on things to do with human behavior, psychology, mindset, business, creativity, all the things I love. And then random things like, a romance novel, or, some quirky factual thing about Star Wars, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I also know that you are also a big believer of energy and, really understanding your physical and spiritual energy in business. So what's your favorite way of grounding yourself, especially because we work with so many clients and we are working with energy all the time? What's your way of just coming back to yourself and grounding yourself?
Grounding myself, which is a form of re-energizing, is about being in a space where I have spaciousness. So this is very much comes back to my Liberator Engineer archetype. We can make better sense of the path to freedom when we have space. And also I have the Visionary Creator, which is got some similar attributes to Liberator Engineer, but amplified on a whole different scale. And I can't. I can't. I often can lose trust in the vision I have for what's possible when I am cluttered and I have a lot of things around me or in my space. So for me, I'm very grateful. I live in Perth, in a beautiful part of Australia, and we have the most incredible beaches, and, not busy beaches, even though I'm in the, city, and I live a matter of a 5-minute drive from an incredible beach. So no matter what the weather is, if I'm feeling kind of stuck and overwhelmed and not trusting or being able to see and sense clear vision, I literally take myself to the coast where there is the uninterrupted skyline. You've got all that beautiful big sky, and you've also got the horizon of the ocean. So there is nothing clouding me and being in my way, even on a cloudy, rainy day. I can create that sense of open and spaciousness, and that brings me right back to who I am and reminds me of who I am, and I feel re-energized no matter what's been going on.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's important for everyone to find their own kind of way of grounding themselves, even if they, like me, I don't live near a beach, but I feel like water still activates me a lot. Like, so whether I'm washing the dishes or, taking a shower, that's the place where I feel like I'm coming back home. So yeah, love this. So this has been amazing, Shannon. I loved every bit of our conversation, as if I had any doubt about it. But and I know we can go on forever. We have so much to talk about, but I want to know what's going on in your world right now. What are you launching? What are you selling? What can people buy from you? But also, where can they find more about you?
Yeah, so I tend to have a lot of things available for people to connect with me these days. I shifted away from a signature program that I did every now and again to lots of different smaller programs and things that all come back to, one of or a combination of 4 things: supporting you in relation to mindset, marketing, money, and magnetism. Magnetism being really about your brand. And the Thrive Factor is the cornerstone of all of those. So bringing that all together. So there's always something new and fresh that's happening. Coming in towards the end of 2022, I'm looking at programs to do with content around, reconnecting with a vision for 2023. Going in for December, for January, we'll do the intentionality program, reaffirming your intentions and vision for the year again in a different format. The Thrive Factor Coach certification will be open again. In fact, we're taking inquiries now, and then that starts again early in the new year. So there's all sorts of fun things going on. The best place to find me, if we're going to social media, my favorite place is Instagram. I am also on Facebook, but so Instagram is my place where you'll first see and probably see more content, information, things, and be able to find out what I've got currently if you're looking for support and guidance. And that is Shannon_the Thrive Factor. And the fact, my podcast too, which launched early October. So she leads, she thrives, and you'll be able to find Swapna on there very soon.
I love it. All of the links are in the show notes, so you can reach out to Shannon and definitely let her know if there was something specific that really blew your mind, which I find hard not to happen. Like, I'm absolutely sure that you have your mind blown many times during this conversation. So definitely share that with her. Thank you so much for this conversation, Shannon, and for just being you. I think you add to the world so beautifully with everything that you do, everything that you create, and just by, the sheer audacity and audaciousness, I know that's a word you love as well, of being yourself. So thank you so much. That's the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I am thrilled to have you as part of the Brave Marketing community. Because this podcast is still brand new, it would mean so much to me if you could leave a 5-star review, as that will make it easy for other brave hearts to find this podcast and grow our community of rule breakers. Until next time, have a brave week ahead.